going live.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NPU Live. I'm Keri Rodriguez.
I'm Tim Langen.
Today is Friday, May 29th, 2020, and we're so glad you're with us today. We have some really important guests this morning, really important guests who are joining us. And I'm just thrilled that they are a part of our family and have been a part of our conversations here in Massachusetts and then nationally as well. Angie Camacho, who is an extraordinary education advocate and a mama from Boston, joining us to talk about what's happening in the Boston public schools. Certainly a lot of controversy these days. Schools were in trouble before COVID-19. They are struggling during COVID-19. Boston, a perfect example of what is what we're really seeing across the country in terms of urban education, really struggling to keep up with our changing populations and with the changing times, especially during COVID-19. We're going to be talking with Angie about how she sees this moment and the extraordinary work that is being done behind the scene by advocates who are trying to make sure that while we are rapid responding to the situation happening in Boston, that we are looking forward to an equity-infused educational recovery. And so we'll be talking with her. But also, critically important to check in with Kulia Pringle, who is live from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she is just doing extraordinary work on a regular basis. But now that, Minneapolis right now is the epicenter of a racial crisis happening in this country, we're going to get her firsthand perspective of how families who are already struggling during the quarantine, struggling to survive pre-COVID-19, are now struggling, having to deal with riots and so many other issues popping up there in Minneapolis. So important to check in with Kulia and our friends in the Minnesota Parents Union who are doing that important work this morning. So just blessed that they're going to be joining us today.
Yes. As always, we start off the news with the COVID-19 numbers. Right now, we're at 1.76 million cases confirmed and over 100,000 deaths, 103,000 deaths to be exact.
That number continuing to tick up. As states are continuing to reopen, we're hearing all over the country people returning to as normal a life as they can, but now we're starting to see shifts, hotspots reemerging. The virus did not suddenly disappear. Nope. There was not a cure. All of us staying home was just in the hopes that we could flatten the curve and really staying true to those CDC guidelines, making sure you're wearing a mask, making sure you're social distancing, trying to stay at home as much as possible, still needs to happen. Unfortunately, because of mixed guidance that we're getting from leadership in this country, and frankly, just a lack of leadership.
That's right.
It's been incredibly disappointing. And now Donald Trump is actually distracted by the situation in Minneapolis. That's right. And
that's right. And the things coming out of his mouth, horrible things. Again, we talked about, and I'll let Kulia speak for herself on this, the protests following the murder of George Floyd. In response to the protests, Trump tweeted that he will bring in the National Guard if this does not stop, and that looting will lead to shooting. I get nothing for that.
Well, and we will tell you, we have also been checking in on Nakima Levy-Armstrong, who was a guest on this program just a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Talking to her about her experience as the head of Wayfinder, the former president of the NAACP in Minneapolis. She is an extraordinary leader for justice, for racial justice, economic justice, educational justice. Just so honored to be in partnership with her. But then to watch her on Facebook Live being hit by tear gas and just extraordinary to see what people are having to do to have their voices be heard, to be respected, to live, and watching one of our dear friends struggle in those moments, literally hit by tear gas, saved by the fact that she was prepared for this moment, knowing how police in Minnesota will often behave, wearing goggles, still wearing a face mask, trying to protect from the coronavirus.
I think it's important too, this is not just affecting Minneapolis residents. We speak to our National Parents Union delegates from across the country. They're all affected. Protests are taking place in various cities. New York City, Detroit, across the country right now.
Phoenix, saw
Exactly.
the incredible protest in Phoenix.
Right.
And folks, you know, Tim, I want to explore this just for a minute here. People really not understanding why folks are rioting in the streets, why looting is happening, why fires are happening. You know, really, I took a moment. The only thing that came to mind was that quote from Martin Luther King, that riot is the language of the unheard. And when so long you have been struggling and, you know, trying to shoulder incredible injustice and fighting and fighting and fighting to have your voice heard, when things like this continue to happen, you know, compounded. I mean, we started off this week talking about what happened in New York City.
That's right.
And the weaponization of 911, the weaponization of the police against Black people, against Black bodies, and what that actually means when folks threaten to do that. And, you know, unfortunately, then, you know, seeing the end result of what that looks like. You know, George Floyd, peacefully arrested. You know, there's some controversy about whether or not he was resisting arrest. None of the footage seems to show that. But again, you know, the results of, you know, years and years of having to witness this kind of injustice over and over and over again, the fear that people have that, you know, you never know when this situation is going to happen, where it's going to pop up. Today it's Minnesota, it's Minneapolis. Tomorrow, where is it going to be next? Because there will be a tomorrow, unfortunately.
And either way, how I see it is, and I'm anti-death penalty, but no matter what someone did, whether because I hear things, well, he shouldn't have resisted the police, shouldn't have written a bad check, shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have put his head out the window, shouldn't have gone on a construction site. None of those things are capital offenses. None of those things deserve having a knee put on your throat and having you be murdered on the street.
One of the most stunning accounts we're actually hearing is from the store clerk. And some of the people who were in the store where the situation with George Floyd happened, where he was allegedly trying to pass a $20 bill. People weren't even sure if he knew he was trying to pass a $20 bill, like a counterfeit. And, you know, more and more coming out about the police officer involved in this situation, finding out that he had multiple complaints against him, and that he may have actually known George Floyd. They were security guards together at a local club with overlapping shifts. So a lot of information coming out, but this particular police officer known. And unfortunately, you know, there are so many police officers with multiple complaints right now on the beat. And there has been no restorative justice with the community. Instead, it is just the continuation of the cycle
escalation
over
of it.
and over and over again. So it's our hope that through these conversations, we can lift up the work of family organizations that are really doing their best to support all of the community members that they are in constant relationship with during the good times and the bad times. You know, we've got to show that solidarity. That's what the National Parents Union is about. So I was very proud last night. We had a wonderful meeting of our governing body, the National Parents Council, which is a group of some absolutely extraordinary parent activists and advocates from across the country who come together to guide this organization. And, you know, it was a moment of grief where they could express themselves around how they were feeling in this moment. Because again, you know, we seem to be, you know, we're the team of doers, you know, the folks, you know, when there is trauma, we don't stop, you know, we don't get bored, we get to work. And these folks have been working constantly around the clock. Sacrificing their families, sacrificing their own safety to serve their communities in this moment, and then to be hit between the eyes with this situation, whether they're folks like our friend Julio, who is in Minneapolis doing this work, or they're in Tulsa, or they're in Detroit, or they're in New York, or they're in San Diego, everyone feeling this and really needing to take a moment together to feel the depth of this sorrow And through that, we have decided to make donations to the Minnesota Parent Union and the Wayfinder Foundation. They took a vote last night wanting to support the work of Kulia, wanting to support the work of Nakima as well, to make sure that they know that it's not just words. You know, it's one thing to post things on Facebook, and it's one thing to post things on social media. But what this moment calls for is action.
That's right.
And it calls for putting your money where your mouth is, quite literally.
Right.
So proud of our parent leaders for coming together and trying to do what they can in their own way, because they know directly, you know, what this moment calls for is to listen to leaders on the ground, to listen to folks who are part of the community, to help the community heal, to help the community recover, to help the community survive. So we'll be taking those actions today to make sure that they have what they need to do the work that they do in the small way that we can. We're also going to be providing links so that you can also donate. So if you're listening to us this morning and you're just beside yourself, I know so many of you are. It's just such a helpless feeling to be sitting so far away and watching others just heartbroken and angry and struggling and fighting for justice and knowing that feeling, but feeling like there's nothing you can do, especially during COVID-19. We're going to do what we can to spread the word. So we're going to be making, it's very easy to Cash App, to Venmo, to support these ladies in their work directly. They are literally doing the most powerful work with the people on the ground. So if you want a donation that's really going to have immediate impact on the situation to support people who are directly doing the work in the community, we're going to do what we can to empower you to help them, because that is what you can do in this moment. You can actually take action.
And we'll be posting all that on the National Parents Union Facebook page.
So again, very emotional conversations this morning. We're proud to bring them to you. We hope you'll share this broadcast with others as well and spread the word about Kulia's work, about Nakima's work, to make sure that they're supported. We're asking you to do that this morning. I know we ask you to share this broadcast, and through your generosity and sharing this, you know, we're reaching, you know, about 1 million families every single week, which we're really proud of, but we're asking you to dig a little deeper and do a little more this morning and to spread the word about the work of these two ladies. So please, you know, we're asking you to make sure that you activate your networks, you activate your organizations if you're an affiliate of the National Parents Union, because this is what a union does. This is true solidarity, is we show up for each other. And that's what makes our organization, I think, very different.
That's right.
So today's the day we do that.
Great.
So get to work.
Great. Well, let's bring on someone right now that's doing the work right here. Right over there. Right over there in Boston.
That's right. We can spit to where, well, not exactly.
We won't.
We won't.
We could, but we won't. Angelina Camacho.
Our good friend Angie, she is wonderful and has been doing the work in Boston Public Schools for as long as I've known her, but she's also a mama. And I am a huge fan, not only of Angie, but her amazing little boy, Christopher, who is 12 and the love of her life, just so extraordinary. You know, and he's in the other room. Oh,
right up. Hold.
Oh, you're on pause, or you're on mute there. Well, we got you on mute. There you go.
I know. I couldn't hit Alt-A fast enough. No, I was saying he's right over there. He's in school right now as we speak. Thank you, Keri and Tim.
So tell me, Angie, how has life been? We're going to get to the big meaty issues, and boy, are there a lot of them, especially in Boston Public Schools. We've been kind of holding up BPS as an example of what is going well and not so well in urban areas across the country. And we've certainly been shooting into those urban areas all over the place, you know, having conversations with parents everywhere. You really have your finger on the pulse, and we want to get into that. But first, we want to know how quarantine life is treating you. We are at the end of week 11, entering week 12. It has been a long slog. So tell me about your experience. What's going on with you and Chris, and how are you guys making it?
I have to say that I'm always in the balance of being stressed and being in the test and being blessed, right? So there's so much around us. There's no way to not be impacted, right? It's not okay. There's a lot, as you know, I've been working on a lot of equity issues over the number of years. And this pandemic has actually amplified all of the inequities that we've been fighting for and saying enough is enough. And it's it's really hard to watch. However, I am so blessed to be in a position to have a kid who is thriving during this time. He happens to be in one of the schools in the public system that is performing and innovating, and yet that has not been the capacity of all the schools across the board. And so there's the test, right? Like you were saying, we can't get bored, we can't get tired. We have to lean in, jump in, amplify, and continue to modify and innovate wherever we can. And that looks different on a number of different levels. So I'm always just trying to be aware of my son's mental health, my mental health, because that's so important. And just remembering my blessings, because this is a hard time for all of us.
Yeah, I gotta say, Angie, it's been interesting to watch. Folks like you and I have been yelling and screaming about these inequities. We've been saying, you know what, there's a lacking of connection with parents and community. There hasn't been a lot of restorative justice with our communities because, there has been generational institutional harm done to these communities, the underservice, the racism. Frankly, the only change we usually see out of BPS is after a federal lawsuit. So change has been hard to come by in BPS, and a lot of folks put those blinders on. Tough conversations, courageous conversations. You and I have been a part of those conversations, speaking to some powerful people and saying some pretty difficult stuff. Because left to their own devices, I'm going to say, and you can say what you want from your perspective. Left to their own devices, everything's coming up roses. It is beautiful. The main problem is just that we can't just keep doing this wonderful work fast enough. Like there's nothing to change, nothing to see here. Just a couple of months ago, it feels like years ago, but a couple of months ago, we were with China Tyler at Northeastern University on a panel where I was listening to Mike LaCanto, the chair of the Boston School Committee and the vice president of the Boston Teachers Union, saying, there's not really a problem here. Racism not an issue. We're really overcoming things. Nothing to see here. Everything's all good. Meanwhile, Boston is about to enter into a memorandum of understanding. Well, at least get some details on that thing, to talk about the fact that, frankly, Boston Public Schools, if we're actually following the letter of the law, should be taken over because of its underperforming status for so many Black and brown children across the district, and just no foresight there. So I don't know, Angie, as you see it right now, are folks actually understanding the reality and the gravity of the situation that we're dealing with right now? Because they seemed shocked a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about the fact that 60% of Boston public high school kids hadn't logged on, saying, oh no, Keri, that's impossible, until the data actually showed that, kids were not logging on. We haven't even heard from about 10,000 children in Boston public schools. So you're in the game, like you talk to a lot of these folks. Do you think they understand how bad this really is?
To be completely fair, I don't think any of us understood how bad it really is. A number of us, like you said, we are fighting. We've been fighting leading up to this pandemic. One of the arguments that I've always brought up from the very beginning is how do we build a world-class competitive student, right? And what is the number that we need to get to in order to properly educate every child? When we're not there, that was problem number one. And what this pandemic did was highlight how far we were from that goal. And so I think inherently, from the internal groups of professionals that I am proud to work with, even when I say you don't get it, and we have those courageous conversations, and I'm fighting with them tooth and nail, but I'm also helping with funding and other opportunities that come our way to leverage and get us closer to the goal. I think the challenge is that we understand from that perspective that there's a lot we need to do, but from an external perspective, there's always the push of parents and advocacy groups like your group, like my groups with BPON and the Mass Women of Color Coalition, our shared connection with Amplified, a number of groups who are saying, hey, we need to do better. But yet there's that balance, right? I think we do understand, but
I want to double click on this before you go any farther. You're talking about let's get to a number. What's the number that we need? How much money does it take,
right,
to educate a child, a whole child, like giving them everything that they need? I got to tell you something. We're spending upwards of $22,000 a year in Boston Public Schools per pupil.
Yep.
We are, Boston Public Schools spends more money than any other urban school district in America, New York only being ahead of us, literally second most expensive per pupil expenditure. The fact of the matter is, I don't think it's a money problem. I think the problem is in how we spend the money. And
well, yep, I agree.
About more money and saying, what's the number? We got the number. We're like, people have said they are willing to spend. Marty Walsh, the mayor of Boston, all kinds of people, we will spend as much money. We've got every foundation in here. How much money does it take? Money is not the total answer. So do you know what that number is? And do you think that the dysfunction actually lies beyond that?
No, I do agree that it lies beyond that, but we haven't actually, I haven't seen, and forgive the cat, I haven't seen us say this is the number, because it's not, the challenge is that yes, it is beyond the money, but it's also how we spend the money, but also what's included in that. Is that really what we want to be able to give our kids? Because remember, in Boston, we have a high concentration of poverty in this area. And the data also tells us from, behavioral economics perspective, how much it actually takes to support these families and get them to start moving, right? To even get us, because I was once upon a time in that pool, how to get us start moving to be, progressive in the things that mobile people are normally found to be able to do with as it relates to asset building stuff, and to be able to provide for those families, build that generational wealth, get out of that Federal Reserve report that says that, Black and brown people, only have $8 in assets. There are things that we know about our financial health and our ability to manage our lives that are seeping in to the BPS system outside what we're able to do. And
I would agree with you on much of that. Yeah. But we also do incredibly stupid things. For instance, bus our children all over the city of Boston, every direction. I mean, the amount of money we spend on transportation, which is just extraordinary, and the excuses that we cannot bring high-performing quality education to every neighborhood that needs it in Boston, where the children actually live, to me is ridiculous. We're instead shipping children off to other schools in other neighborhoods, asking them to sit on buses for extraordinary long periods of time, spending extraordinary amounts of money. All of these excuses as to why we can't actually improve the quality of our neighborhood schools. We also have a system that is set up to service 90,000 children with a population of about, between 52 and 54,000. We have not been able to move the bureaucracy to change and evolve with the changing demographic, with the changing geography of the city of Boston. And there's still resistance to that, because if we were to change and to adapt our system to meet the needs of children, that may mean that some schools may need to close, some schools may need to consolidate. And all of this actually goes back to what we're now dealing with COVID-19, because now I want to get into that before we lose too much time here, because, that is going to be the core of so much of the conversations moving forward. Massachusetts Parents United just passed our Family Bill of Rights, which top priority is health and safety of our children. We've done extensive polling of families to find out what they're most concerned about, and it is health and safety. Frankly, they don't trust education leaders to make the call for when to open schools, frankly, because we're a little bit concerned that they haven't been to schools lately, especially Boston public schools, where we don't have functioning bathrooms, where we don't have places where children can wash their hands in the best of times. And now the expectation that these same facilities are going to be able to keep our kids safe and healthy post-COVID-19 should be reopened. So, Angie, how do we even start down this path?
Right. There has to be some foresight and some forgiveness, right? On all sides. One of the challenges that we have from the external side is those of us who have been fighting and saying this is not enough. We need to relook at where budget dollars are going. We need to reimagine how the public school system is working. We're now pressing the district to say, make changes now, right? And internally, the conversation is they need those external partners because people can't operate in a vacuum, right? But they have to take an engineering perspective, hopefully, and measure twice before they cut once. But the challenge is we have the issue of time. This pandemic requires action now. The way many parents have been saying, our kids are going through these grades now. We don't have 5 or 7 years to wait until you get it together because our kids have graduated or have already picked their high schools or may have already decided whether or not they're going to rise to the challenge or be risk averse, for early dropouts or truancy or any other thing that's going to further put them behind in the trajectory of progress that we need to see for our young people. And so they're facing staff who aren't ready to jump into the technological advances that are needed now. They're, like you said, we're walking into buildings that are, that the Build PPS plan was still thinking about how to reimagine in order to be ready for every day, never mind these days. There's a framework that needs to include both foresight and forgiveness so that we can actually build a future where our kids can be successful. And I don't think that we've all come to that place yet. And so it's frustrating for everybody.
Well, and it's hard to come, to a place of forgiveness when there's been no restorative justice. So this is what we are facing right now. Mm-hmm. On the statewide level, we have had to fight for parents to have a presence on the return to school working group, which frankly had more cops on it than parents. There was one parent from Rehoboth, Massachusetts, representing the entire parent community on that task force until we raised holy hell to change that. And now we have parents from Boston, Lawrence, Lowell, Brockton, all over the place. You are now joining because their voices are critically important. We weren't invited to the table, but we're showing up for the table and we're coming with real expectations around what we want, not just health and safety, but we want to know that we are part of the team and the information we've collected about what our kids know and what their deficits and what their brilliance is and what we're seeing right before us, because there are, as you started this conversation talking about Chris, there are a lot of wonderful things happening too. We need to be a part of the team and we want to make sure that we're proactively thinking about how do we welcome children back to education, whether it's remote or it's in person, with everything that they need to not just get in there, but to thrive and to overcome this challenge. So I want to know, we've had to get out there with the pitchforks to get to be heard on the statewide level. I know you are part of the conversation at BPS. Put your parent hat on. Do you think that parents are being heard in the conversations around equity, around things needing to change at BPS, recovering from COVID-19? You are a part of those conversations. How is it going? And do you need more support? What can we do for you?
I think continuing to press is the right way to go. Similar to your situation, when I sit on the ELL task force or even on the nomination panel, they said, well, what organization do you want to be part of and be affiliated with? And so on the selection panel, I'm representing BPON on the ELL task force. I tell them, say I'm a parent. And they said, well, what about the organization? Parents, because there needs to be a push to elevate parents to our proper role as our children's first teacher. And we are professionals in that role. And we have professional expertise that needs to inform this process. And we need to push to make sure that that is not lost in our planning. I do think, to answer your question, that Charles and Andrea and the rest of the team is really in a place where they're stuck between Frederick Douglass and Madam Walker, right? They need the outside organizations to come in and agitate while they lead a process to innovate, and that has to be hand in hand. So I think that yes, they are doing a better job than what we have witnessed before in regards to accepting and embracing parent engagement. But there are so many stakeholders and so many voices that they have the very hard task of trying to determine how many of those voices would be appropriate to inform in a timely way for them to take action.
Well, Angie, I just want to say Massachusetts Parents United, just so thrilled to be in partnership with BPON, having you guys on our Facebook Live broadcast that we're providing for families across the city of Boston, reaching hundreds of thousands of families across the state, but so many in Boston that need that perspective, need to be heard, bringing issues to the table. BPON so important to our conversations, but also the Massachusetts Parents United Bill of Rights, which was just ratified last week. We're thrilled to have folks signing on to endorse this, including the YMCA of Greater Boston, March Forward Massachusetts, the Latino Education Institute, the Teachers Lounge, the Urban League, the Multi-State Association for Bilingual Education. So we are going to be having your back from the outside, and certainly challenging this conversation to make sure that parents and families are represented, that you know that we have your back in these conversations so that we can make sure we're putting the health, the safety, and the best interests of our children first and foremost, not just during COVID-19, but what is going to be a very difficult coming to Jesus moment, frankly, for the Boston Public Schools. They are under intense scrutiny by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education because they have earned that scrutiny, as we saw in the BPS audit. And racism did not take a break because we are in the middle of a pandemic. The underservice of the children of the city of Boston, continues. And so we're going to continue that fight and that advocacy while we also serve our families. So we're so glad that you're in that mix and speaking truth to power. I want to give you the last word here.
I just thank you, Keri. Thank you to all of our parents who are out there in the fight. You may not feel like you're in the fight, but if you're in your home trying to do the best you can for your kids, you are in this battle with us. So don't give up. If you need help, reach out to any resource that you need. Your mental health, your children's mental health is so important. We're all in this together, and it's not just a cliche or a motto that we're holding on to be convenient. It is real. So get connected with NPU. NPU, please, if you don't have the seat on the BPS reentry panel, please call Charles and get on it. And to all of our parents, mothers, fathers, bio parents, foster parents, thank you. We need you. Our kids need you. And let's go forward with power.
Angie, thank you so much for being with us. Angie Camacho, live from Boston. She's with the Boston Public Health Commission, but she's also a part of so many parent panels for the Boston Public Schools, and really doing the hard work of having tough conversations from the inside to try to get those folks thinking about families and community as we move forward through COVID-19. Now we turn to a very important and special conversation. And it's a family conversation. I'm so glad that Tim is with us for this one, because we want to welcome Kulia Pringle. She is on the National Parents Union Advisory Council. She is one of our leaders of this organization. She is also a family advocate working with the Minnesota Parents Union. She was the MVP, the National Parent Advocate of the Year for the National Parents Union. Her work is so extraordinary, and she is joining us live from Minnesota this morning. at the heart of what is just an absolute heartbreaking situation unfolding in our country. So Kulia, are you with us? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. We can't see you though.
Oh.
Let's see if we can see you.
There you are. Hey.
Kulia, I just, you know, we've been talking so much about the situation in Minneapolis and what is unfolding in front of you. I just want to shut up for a minute and allow you to speak to folks and let them know what they need to know from your perspective on what you're seeing in your city and in your state.
As you said, my name is Kulia Pringle. I'm a family advocate with the Minnesota Parent Union. Currently, I provide one-on-one support to families, however that looks. During this time of before the murder of George Floyd, we were going through this epidemic, and the support families needed was basic support, food, hygiene, cleaning supplies, Pampers. So that's where my duties had lied. And then now we are currently, both cities are burning right now. We just heard last night that the Hennepin County attorney needs more time to investigate. It's just a sad day. And now even more things are happening, even more traumas compounded upon trauma. It's just a sad, I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to feel. I feel like I'm numb a little bit because I was already under the stress of parent stress. Mm-hmm. Now I'm really under stress.
Kulia, what was extraordinary is the fact that, you know, you were doing this work, and in the best of times, it is so difficult. You know, the work you're doing on the front lines is so often unseen. I was so struck when we were in New Orleans together, you talking about, you know, how you're a critical lifeline to so many families, and you provide this support, but so often it's never appreciated. But it means everything to the families that you work with. You are literally a lifeline. You talk about dropping off diapers and formula and food. On top of, like, we see you at the Board of Education raising holy hell, because we all talk about this moment needing to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yep.
Because at the same time that you're doing this work with your families, you know, folks are acting a fool and trying to pass policies that are going to hurt these same families. It's again that trauma compounding. You and I have had this conversation, you know, on mornings like this before, but to have to, on top of all of that, you know, can you just tell us from your heart perspective, this had just got to be like how are you holding yourself together in this moment, just in your own heart from where you sit?
I have to give credit to my ancestors. You know, I'm a former educator. I'm a social studies teacher. I'm a history buff, so I know a lot of, you know, things that have happened to my people and other people. So I usually call on that strength and that wisdom and that knowledge. Just the fact that they were able to survive way more than I feel like I'm enduring, gives me the strength to move on and to keep fighting, and to know that I still have to carry on the torch that they left for me. I can't just stop because I'm a little tired or. And
the work's still going on, right, Kulia? Yeah. You fed a lot of families this week. I see you posting, I got 15 families fed this week. I want to hit 20. You know, that's amazing work. You were telling us before the show, you know, putting families up in hotels.
Yeah.
Just because this work doesn't stop, right?
Yep. And I've met some amazing people on Facebook, because I did not have you know, my contract got, you know, cut in half. I'm not, you know, all the way employed. And, you know, thanks to the National Parent Union, I do have some income coming in as well through that. But I didn't have any organizational support to support my families as they were crying out for help. So I had to reach out to Facebook and to everybody that I knew. And I was just amazed at the amount of support people are willing to give, even though they don't know me or they don't know the families that I'm helping. I'm just so grateful for all the love that people have showed me and the families that I'm helping. Like I said, I didn't get any grants. I didn't, I just said, I got to do something. like, there were resources out there, and I would tell families, oh, you can go pick up food from there. And they're like, well, I got 3 kids and no car. And I'm like, oh, yeah, how does that look?
Mm.
I had parents that had COVID symptoms that couldn't even leave the room. How does that look? So.
And now so much of your neighborhood, unfortunately, like where you are, the families that you serve, hard hit. I mean, before you couldn't go into stores, now the stores are burnt down.
Closed. Yeah.
Are burnt down.
Burnt down.
Yeah.
There are people fighting for justice in the streets, just fighting for survival.
Yes.
And it's extraordinary. I mean, we were talking about Nekima Levy Armstrong and some of the incredible, information she's been sharing with folks, getting hit with tear gas. I mean, if you're a mama, sitting in your city right now, you're already afraid, you got 3 kids, you're trying to get to, to the food pickup place on a regular basis, but you have all of this happening in the streets where the police are acting a fool. I don't even know what to say. People who are heartbroken in the streets crying out for justice, and they are met with this just disgusting display.
Just an escalation of what's going on,
it's
making
just,
it worse.
Like just a tone deaf moment from that we're seeing there. How best, I said we're all, feeling helpless here. A lot of us doing work in different communities, but I gotta say, I don't want to put the emotional labor on you to help, figure this out, but I just want to give you the space. Like, if there are things right now, like not Facebook posts, not, sending you warm text messages.
Likes are great.
What do you need
what do you
right
need?
now? Do you need money?
We need money. Yeah. The easiest way, because this is a national organization, of course, if there's a way that you can send me the food, send me the Pampers, send me the hygiene stuff, send me the cleaning products, I'm willing to do that as well. But the easiest way, because I do have parent leaders who have been stepping up, doing the transportation for me, shopping for me, dropping stuff off to families. Money would be the best way to really get like the direct support on the ground to families where they're needed. I just had 2 of my former students, I call them my kids, because as teachers, we always call our students our kids. They're doing a rally today, and they're accepting donations. So I'm using some of my donations that I got as well to support, to get water, snacks, gloves, hand sanitizers, to help him in his work to try to bring some peace to the youth in the community. But yeah, money is the big thing right now. Supporting Nekima. She's also doing groundwork as far as she's in contact with multiple organizations that are actually doing the rapid response work, making sure there's medic and people have, are hydrated and have, like I said, masks and hand sanitizers and there's food set up and stuff. So what the National Parent Union and the delegates have done so far by getting money directly into the hands of me and Nekima, that is a first step, because we then can directly get the money and the resources into the hands of the community.
Let me ask something. Who are some of the names of the parent leaders you're talking about? Who are some of the organizations you're partnering with that Nekima is working with right now? If you want to give them shout outs.
Yep. So Nekima's working under Racial Justice Network right now. She's also working with Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamal, who was also murdered by Minneapolis Police Department. Communities United Against Police Brutality, Black Lives Matter Twin Cities, Black Lives Matter Minnesota, Minneapolis NAACP, the churches in North and South Minneapolis, the pastors have stepped up, Mad Dads, Boots on the Ground, I'm blanking on her name, Mother's Love, they're doing similar work to me, but they're doing it more for the elders. They're making sure that seniors are getting food and the things that they need, because they're obviously not as mobile. Off the top of my head, those are the organizations that I could think of. But Racial Justice Network is the organization that Nakima's under. And I know they're collecting direct donations through their PayPal. But if you go to the Racial Justice Network Facebook page or Nakima Levy Armstrong's page, you should be able to find out how to donate to her directly as well.
Because I think the thing that blows my mind here is that if people don't know, they see the Minnesota Parents Union, and I don't know what they might visualize. They might visualize 50,000 parents in a building. This isn't something that's federally funded. This isn't something that's really even funded. You just woke up one day, you saw a problem, and talk about grassroots. Jesus Christ, you're just running around feeding people because that's what you're seeing in your community.
And that's what moms do. That's what dads do. When there's a problem, you step up, you solve the problem, you figure it out, and hope that people support your work. But the work has to happen.
Yep, it has to happen. And I'm just grateful for all the support I've received thus far. Like I said, no, this is just literally people just giving me, and then I give, where I to the families that are coming to me. And I'm so grateful that the family advocates that I work with are, I'm able to help the African American community, I'm able to help the Latinx community, and I'm able to help the East African community because of the family advocates I work with.
You have those long-standing relationships. One of the
Yep.
things that is so extraordinary about you is that you've seen the importance of this relationship,
Yes.
in these relationships for forever.
Yes.
Building these. So you're a trusted ambassador. So when they are in trouble, they know who to go to and who will help them. So that's why we want to make sure that your voice is heard, Kulia. Personally, this has got to be, an unprecedented trauma weighing on your shoulders. And I know you're saying you're numb, but I can see the tears flowing at the same time. As you look forward, how are we going to support you long term? What are some of the things that you need to see from us, from your sister and brother organizations across the country? What do you need to see from foundations and people who want to support work? And if you could say to them, speak to them right now, saying why this important work needs to continue long term, what would you say right now?
I would just say, I know everybody is under tremendous stress. We had the pan epidemic, but now we have this looming thing of George Floyd's murder hanging over our heads, as well as the Arbery's and Breonna Taylor's and just people getting cops called on them for walking, just doing normal things. I just want to just make sure that everybody knows that there was an issue before all this happened where Black, Brown, and Indigenous and low-income kids were not being served. Mm-hmm. They were not being served. Here in Minnesota, 4 out of 5 Black children could not read at grade level. And I don't know if people know what that translates out to, not just in school, but in our community. There's a reason why our communities are burning right now. There's a reason why people are pissed right now. It's because of the miseducation, the lack of education, the undereducation that they received. I'm begging people to stay, and I'm trying to do the same thing. Although I'm feeding families, I'm staying on top of what's going on at the governor's office. I'm staying on top of what's going on at the district, what the superintendents are talking about, what families are going through as far as distance learning goes. Do people still need resources as far as the internet and homework help and things like that? We have to stay pushing the status quo to not stay the same and not think that they could just use this COVID experience to sort of just say, well, we just need a COVID plan. No, we need a restructuring plan. We need a dismantling plan. We need a rebuilding plan. We need to start over because what was working isn't working, and this thing has exacerbated what wasn't working, and we need to change it ASAP.
Can you point to some? I know you and I have talked about this directly, but it's a powerful example of some of the things that your Board of Education has been trying to pull, in the midst of this crisis, and they're continuing to do it while the cities are burning. So, what are you seeing there? What is being perpetrated on the community at the same time that you're trying a rapid response?
So the 2 cities are different, of course. St. Paul and Minneapolis are different. So there's things happening differently, both good and bad on each side of the river. Minneapolis has gone through a comprehensive district design plan that they just passed. I just heard you talk about how Massachusetts is spending all this money on transportation, busing kids out and not reimagining that every school could be a high quality school. And Minneapolis did that, and they're taking their integration dollars and putting it back into low performance schools. They've moved the magnet schools out of white neighborhoods into the Black neighborhoods so that they can redirect resources. And I've been called to sit on a few of the committees at MPS. And I've been able to invite a lot of parents to apply so they can be involved in the implementation of this restructuring. So that's one of the sort of
Bright spots.
yeah. And I don't trust the district, so I don't want to say it's like a hype thing and this plan is like the oh my gosh, they got this plan, it's going to be great. I don't want to do that. I don't trust the district. I don't trust anything that they do, which is why.
Well, they haven't given you much reason.
No, but having parents at the table to make sure that they're involved in policies and practices and doing true engagement, to me, that's a first step. And reaching out to community partners, like you said, Keri, like me, which they know I'm a thorn in their ass, to actually help them recruit parents is, to me, is also a plus.
Across the country now, where folks that would normally say, "Oh God, NPU, this group, that group, oh they're just," now suddenly it's, "Oh, can you help us? Can you bring our group? We need that." Yeah, we know you do, and it's hard in this moment. I want to ask you these last couple of questions here. I know our time is short, and you've got a lot of work to do, but without it takes a lot of grace to be willing to enter into relationship and build those bridges when there has not been restorative justice. There has not been a conversation and an acknowledgement of the past inequities and the disrespect, ill treatment. But so many of you, I'm so proud of so many of these organizations stepping up and willing to be the bigger people and say, in this moment we're going to step up and help. But that's a lot. It's your skepticism comes from a place of knowledge and experience. So how has that been?
It's been okay. Like I said, they are in the process right now. The plan won't go in effect for another year. So they're sort of just getting applications in and trying to get parents in on board. But right now we're still stuck at I don't even know if there's going to be, they had decided to do some sort of blend of in-person and distance learning for the summer, but our city is burnt. So I'm sure the district's going to have to rethink plans for this summer. And then hopefully they'll be doing some true engagement when it comes for reopening in the fall. I did send over to Minneapolis Public Schools the National Parent Union's Declaration of Human Rights demands, asking that they take a look at these. And these are the things that our families that I've spoken to would like to see happen before schools reopen. So we're using the Bill of Human Rights as a conversation starter.
Yeah, well, and I'm so inspired by that because we're trying to do that in Massachusetts.
Right.
We see people across the country starting to do that too. It's one thing to earn that seat at the table and to be given a seat at the table. It's another thing when they don't expect parents to actually have a Bill of Rights and action items and expectations. Right. It's a new moment for parents in that kind of leadership and activism to go in there, not just angry, but with a solution and ready for justice. So I think, being prepared in those moments, I'm glad we can do that work together.
That's right.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for it. It was when I showed it to parents, they were like, wow, you did your research. I said, no, I didn't do anything. So National Parent Union did their research.
We have to shout out our education committee doing extraordinary work. I'm excited to see what we're going to do with the Every Family Votes campaign because we.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure every family in America is going to be voting.
I hope so.
We're like pit bulls with a stake. We're not letting it go.
Nope.
It's going to happen. So, Kulia, as we wrap up here, I just want to say we're so proud of you. We're so inspired by you. The way you persevere, there's not a lot more I can say. It's just stunning, your grace, your leadership in these moments. We're just so proud, and in any way that we can be helping to support you, giving you resources, lifting you up, making sure you are heard. You tell us, you put us on it, and we will be there for you.
Thank you so much, Keri and Tim. Thank you, National Parent Union members.
All right.
Have a nice weekend. Please stay safe.
You too.
Pringle joining us from Minnesota. She's in Minneapolis. Just extraordinary.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that, you know, she continues, like the city is literally burning.
Right.
Hearts are broken all over. People in the street crying for justice. And they are continuing to serve families because, you know what? There are still mamas that need food, that need diapers, that need help. You know, there are still policymakers trying to make big decisions
Right.
about what's going to happen to our kids, and she's in that conversation. And at the same time, trying to show solidarity with all of these other groups across her city, across her state, across her country, just showing that extraordinary grace and leadership. So proud of her in this moment. Really proud.
That's right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. I all hope you have a safe weekend. We'll see you on Monday. It is World Family Day.
That's right.
We'll be celebrating that, and that'll be broadcast throughout the day on Monday. But again, please stay safe and be good to each other, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Have a great weekend.